Well, this is where I grew up. This is my father's home farm. He still owns and operates this farm. This is where I grew up. This was my playground. This was my teacher. This was my friend. This is why I do what I do today, is because of that farm and growing up in that farm. And I know that's why a lot of you are here today, is because you feel passionate about agriculture and doing the right thing for animals and doing the right thing for the people that work on farm. So this is a huge part of who I am, and it's something I'm very proud of. This is the man and woman who started the farm. This is Ambrose and Stella. When Stella was pregnant with her first child, Ambrose got drafted and shipped to the South Pacific for 5 years. When he came back and met his daughter, he said he was working in the suburbs of Chicago at the time in an auto factory. He was a mechanic by trade, but grew up on a farm. He said, "Stella, if the next one's a boy, we're going to start a farm." When my dad was born, sure enough, they moved from the suburbs of Chicago down to Sigel and found ground for sale and started a very diversified farm. They had chickens, dairy cows, beef cattle, pigs, just a little bit of everything. These are my kids and my husband and my parents on the Quasqui Centennial of Sigel, Illinois. Now, mind you, Sigel has 400 people. This was the longest parade I'd ever seen in my life, with the fewest attendees because everyone was in the parade, right? So my mom is dressed up like the dairy cow. She's carrying her sign that says "Eat pork." And my brother is the chicken, along with my sister Lucy. And all the kids were animals. And it meant so much to me to be a part of spreading what I learned in agriculture to my kids. Because for us, it's all about family. It's all about working together. It's all about being responsible for the animals that we serve. And so this is who I am. This is why I do what I do. And this is why I'm here today, because of this background, because of this shared love for agriculture. When I started at Eastern Illinois University, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew that I liked playing basketball and I was pretty good at it. And so that's what I did for a few years. And I kind of just took classes that I thought were kind of cool. And then my coach finally sat me down and she said, "Sarah, but you're in college and eventually you have to declare a major." I was a junior at this point. And so I said, "Well, okay, I guess I'll make up my mind." And when I really sat down and thought about it, I realized I need to do something with agriculture. And so I declared to be pre-vet at that moment. Got into veterinary school and attended the University of Illinois College of Veterinary Medicine. When I was in vet school, sitting around and looking at my classmates towards the end, I had every intention of being a mixed animal practitioner. But I was looking around the room and thinking, who's going to serve people like my dad? I mean, do I want any of my classmates out there? And when I was looking around the room, I realized, well, gosh, that person's me. I'm the one who needs to do this. And so although I was thinking I was going to be this mixed animal practitioner and do the little bit of everything in a James Herriot sort of way, at the end of the day, I signed up for what I think is an extremely glamorous profession. One that being a pig vet is great. The people we get to work with are wonderful. The animals that we serve get to experience good environments, especially on a weather like today. It's 70 in the pig barns, you know? It's been a great profession. It's been a great choice. Working with farmers is something that I feel so very passionate about. 3 years ago, I didn't leave practice. I still serve a number of clients because I want to get on farm and keep relevant. I opened up a company called Ag Create Solutions, and we focus on reaching the people who work on farms in innovative ways And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how we can reach our adult learners on farm in a way that they actually listen. And not just listen, but apply what we need them to apply day in and day out on farm. Because adult learners are different than children who are learning in school. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Part of our company is to become a source of training material for the pork and ag industry. And so one thing we support is a portal through which we administer some of our lessons. And we'll talk about that as an example of how you could mimic administration and assess and track and certify in a way that drives the training on farm. Just to start, here's some of the core beliefs of our firm that drive our mission. We're doing what we love, and we feel really good about that. And I hope you all are as well. We believe that people make a difference, and that to make any sort of change on farm, first and foremost, we have to reach the people to offer better well-being to the animals. We believe stories resonate, and that sometimes teaching is a form of a story in a way that you reach a person with relevance. We are also scientists by training, and data matters. And we want all that we develop to be driven by data. We strive to know and understand the customer so that what we create reaches the customer in a way that's meaningful. We want to know and understand the audience so that what we create reaches the audience in a way that is meaningful. And at the end of the day, part of our mission is to deliver what you all as farmers need to better improve your herd. So today we're going to talk about an on-farm training toolkit for reaching adults on farm. So first and foremost, I want you to pick up the pad in front of you and a pen, and we're going to start with a little bit of homework. I want each of you to write down a few ways that you learned as a child. How did you learn when you were a child and in school? What sort of techniques did your teacher use to teach you as a child? So take 5 minutes and write this down. So when your teacher put those times tables in front of you, how did you learn it? Right? What did they do? So when you were a child and you were learning addition and multiplication for the first time, any ideas? Shout it out. What'd you do? You memorized. So when your teacher put that times table in front of you for the first time, did you question it? No, they're your teacher. For goodness sake, they're in charge of your learning, aren't they? You immediately accepted it. What else? How else did you learn when you were a child? Repetition, homework. Absolutely. Why did you get it done? Discipline. And who disciplined you to get it done? Your mom, your dad, your teacher. You're in trouble if you didn't do it, right? And you wanted to please those folks some of the time. And so you did it because others held you accountable, right? And you were kind of okay with that. How else did you learn as a child? Field trips. Yeah. Why did those reach you? Hands-on. Hands-on. Yeah. Absolutely. Anything else? How did you learn when you were a child? Mistakes. Yeah. Why did those resonate to you as a child? Because something was gonna happen if you didn't make a difference, right? As children, we were recipients, driven by adults, and we accepted that. In fact, we kind of relished it. We wanted to please our parents. We wanted to please the teachers, right? You know, we all went through a why phase, but for the most part, we were implicitly accepting of information. Multiplication tables, absolutely. I need to memorize them. We're going to do them on the blackboard. I believe you. I believe you. We were willing to engage without some sort of immediate relevance, were we? I wasn't presented the times tables in a, story. All I wanted was to learn it so I could be the first one done, right? We were willing to leave responsibility of learning to a guardian. Memorization was easy. Our brains at that point were more sponge-like, accepting, for evolutionary reasons, willing to draw things in so we'd learn how to survive, right? At that point of our life, our brains are taking things in. Our brains are designed to be moldable and receptive when we are a child. Take that same pad of paper and I want you to write down a few things what resonates with you as an adult now? How do you learn now that you are almost an adult?
Almost? I was there today.
How do you learn as an adult? What's different? What do you think? What's different now that you're an adult? How do you learn differently?
Question everything.
You question everything. Absolutely. Absolutely. What else? What did you say?
Direct application.
You want direct application. You want to be able to apply what you're hearing. What else? What do you need as an adult? You need a reward. Yeah, you sure do. You need a sense of achievement. What else do you need as an adult?
Problem solving. You gotta find out the problem first.
Yeah. It has to be relevant. Something that is meaningful to you, that is a problem that you are a part of solving, right? Insurance companies know when our brains change. It's different if you're a male or you're a female, but around the age of 25, our brain shifts to an adult brain. We start rejecting more information and being more selective about when we want to pay attention and what's important to us. Makes us better drivers, but to a certain extent, it makes us a little bit more difficult to teach. Because I can't come in front of you and throw up a times table and say, believe everyone, just believe. Because everyone's going to raise their hand and say, why? First and foremost, why is this important to me? What's in it for me? How am I going to use this? What am I going to do with this information? When we train people on farm, we have to respect that we're training with adults, not children. We can't just hand them something and say, read this and believe. We have to respect who they are as humans and where they are in their journey as humans. And be good teachers. And accept that to instigate any sort of change, we have to be good teachers. This is one of my favorite midwives. Her name is Becky. About 6 years ago, Becky was told she had 6 months to live. She was diagnosed with terminal cancer and had to go through some pretty strong chemotherapy and was on basically medicine just to control her pain. And she said, she argued with her doctors because they told her she couldn't work in the farrowing barn anymore. And she said, but I love it. I love going to work and working with those baby pigs. It's what I do. And they said, but you're going to put yourself at risk. And she says, I have 6 months. I'd rather live doing what I want to do rather than, go home and sit there. What am I going to do? Watch TV and smoke my cigarettes? No, I'm gonna go to work. Her son's the manager of the farm. For her, it's also a social place, a place where she wants to be. Becky's still kicking. In fact, she's still working on that farm. She didn't beat her cancer. She's not even called in remission, but she's overexceeded what the doctors have predicted, because working on a farm can be a really fulfilling career, can't it? But people have to realize that it is a profession. And for some, it's actually a calling to serve the animals and to feed the world. And that's how Becky felt. You in this room provide those opportunities for those who feel that calling to work and serve animals. But to do that calling justice, we have to be willing to invest in ourselves as teachers and leaders. Because otherwise you're going to lose the Beckys. You're going to lose the people who can be the Beckys on your farm, who are there because they love it and want to be there, doing the right thing day in and day out. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Providing animal well-being and good animal care is a responsibility as a human, but it's also an opportunity. We need people to raise farm animals, people like Becky, but we need them to understand the importance of their daily actions. Otherwise, they won't know that it is a profession. They'll just think it's a job. I truly believe that when we can help folks like Becky realize that they're called to this profession and they get the job done right on a day in and day in out basis, that we help people like Becky be ordinary folks like you and me who are capable of doing extraordinary things, and that it's something to be celebrated, providing this good well-being and care for animals. So when we teach adults, let's talk about some of the things that we need to put in our on-farm toolbox. First and foremost is relevance. We have to figure out what is relevant to our learners about what we are bringing forth. My husband, when I was in vet school, spent some time out in Seattle. And I would go out and visit him, and we'd see each other occasionally. And I had never skied before because it was always against NCAA rules. They're like, don't go skiing, don't go anything, don't do anything fun because you get hurt. And we don't want you hurt, we want you able to play. So I'd never done it before. So I'd graduated and I was ready to learn. And so he's like, oh yeah, I know how to ski. I'm gonna teach you how to ski. It's like, okay, honey, that sounds great, let's go. So we go out to the slopes and he says, you're an athlete, it's gonna be easy. So we go up to the bunny slopes and he says, okay, this is how you turn, this is how you stop, okay, let's go. And then he took off, and I was like, I was okay on the bunny slopes. I was feeling okay, just fell a few times, and he was like, oh yeah, 15 minutes later, you're ready. Let's get on a ski lift. I'd never been on a ski lift. And so we got on one, and we started going up higher and higher, and I was really started to freak out because I didn't know how I was gonna get off. And I noticed that we were passing signs that had 2 black diamonds on them. And I thought, if I know anything about skiing, I think that something with 2 black diamonds on it is probably not what I'm ready for at this moment in time. As we approached the dismounting area, I realized that, oh my goodness, to even get off this thing, I'm going to have to know how to ski to get off. And I started to freak out more and more. Sweating, and it's like, oh no, what am I going to do? So we get off. I immediately fall, roll down, and am hopelessly tangled up in all my skis. The ski lift operator's like, woman down, go this way, because everyone's coming around you. I roll the rest of the way down the slope, barely get up, and then I'm faced with this difficult, icy slope. All I could do the whole way down was crash, crash, the whole way down. It was awful. At the end, I was just scooting down the mountain on my bottom, and I was crying. It was not fun.
Thank you, husband.
Yeah. 8 years later, I get invited to speak at Pig Ski. And I'm like, oh no, this is bad. I don't know how to ski. I'm awful at skiing. I have to go speak at Pig Ski. I almost turned him down. And I thought, no, Sarah, you're going to try again. You're going to try again. And you're going to go to a real instructor. And so I went, and I approached the group kind of slowly because I was nervous. And the instructor came up to me, and she said, oh, hi, what's your name? And I was like, Sarah. And she says, well, what's your past experience with skiing? And I was like, well, my husband. And she goes, oh, you're in that group over there. And it really, I kid you not, was a group of ladies whose husbands had attempted to teach them how to ski. And so we spent like the first half hour debriefing about all of our awful experiences and what horrible teachers our husbands were. And so we kind of bonded, and we felt like we were friends. And then she slowly took us to the bunny slopes and gave us instruction and waited until we as a team felt comfortable with the task. And then she went to something that had like green symbols on it, which was, intermediate. And it was softly snowing, and the snow was just perfect, and we had a great, great experience. I talked to that instructor afterwards. I said, why did you handle us in that way? What did you do? She said, well, 80% of first-time skiers never come back because of a bad experience, poor teacher, they're pushed beyond their level, or they have no training. I don't know what it's like in other industries in this room, but in the pork industry, we sometimes do that to folks. We throw them on a double black diamond slope with no training, and we wonder why they don't come back. Let's talk about what relevance means. I think it's really important that you know what your learner's past experiences are, that you approach it like that ski instructor, and that you create a system of relevance that starts the first day of their employment, but also you periodically recheck in with those folks on farm to understand what experiences are happening on your farm that's changed their point of relevance. Because how the learner feels about learning is going to affect how they learn, and subsequently what they do and whether they stay. I don't know, had any of you ever read The Hobbit as a child? J.R.R. Tolkien, I love The Hobbit. But there's a quote by Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit, and Bilbo says, he had a feeling that the answer was quite different and that he ought to know it. But he could not think of it. He began to get frightened, and that is bad for thinking. Have any of you ever been in a situation where you were frightened and you were, I remember in vet school, we had this test. The professor was standing right there in front of me. Okay, Sarah, point to this part of the horse. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I felt intimidated, and my brain just sort of slowly shut down, and I thought, this is not going well. When we feel anxious, when we feel embarrassed, maybe we're new on the team, we're feeling shy, when we feel fear or frustration, it changes how we're able to learn. And you need to know where your people are, what they're feeling, before you can help them move to the next step. So I want to show you some examples of how to establish relevance, which is one of the most important ingredients in adult learning. When you're on farm, you have to be a good listener if you're going to be a good leader of training. You have to ask questions. You have to listen. You have to routinely survey your folks on farm. You must schedule feedback and follow-up, and the your employees need to know when their feedback and follow-up is scheduled, because they'll look forward to it. It's important to know what's relevant to your employees, not just now, but also after they've been on your farm for a while. It's my company's job to develop training material that teaches adults, right? So one thing we try to do is establish relevance as we're teaching. So I'll show you an example of a day one midwifery lesson that we've produced.
This lesson is brought to you by Stalisan. Evaporating wetness takes a lot of energy from the body. If a baby pig is dried after they are born with a drying agent like Stalisan.
I'm sorry, this is our ad we sold at the beginning of the lesson, and I can't move on because it won't let me see the bottom of this slide.
To nurse that first milk and fill their bellies with colostrum.
Okay.
Every pig needs colostrum to live. It's the most
Yeah.
valuable thing they ever receive in their entire life.
There we go. Okay, we're moving on.
Monitoring sows as a pharaoh. Welcome back. In lesson 2, you'll be in charge of monitoring sows as a pharaoh as a midnight midwife. As you work, we need you to move from sow to sow and make careful decisions on what to do for the sow and the pig she is birthing. Because of your decisions, you can help save some lives and get these pigs off to a great start. When you are ready, click on the doorway and enter the farrowing room. Here we are at our first sow. It's 9:00 p.m. It's important that we work very quietly and calmly. It looks like she doesn't have any pigs. What would be a good first action?
Okay. We have our first quiz question. What happens to a person typically who immediately sees a quiz question? Panic, fear. Oh my gosh. What we've tried to do in our lessons is create quiz questions where they can find the answers. So here, if I want to find out more information about this, I click on the eye.
Checking for milk will let you know if a sow is going to farrow in the next 24 hours or not. Squirting milk means that she will likely farrow during your shift. Small amounts of expressed milk means that she will likely farrow in the next 24 hours. Udder stimulation also increases the release of natural oxytocin. When you stimulate the udder and pull on teats, you may be causing contractions that will stimulate the first pig to be born.
How do you feel about a quiz question where you can find the answer within the question? Yeah, does your anxiety go down a little bit? Yeah, and you also learn as you figure it out. So what this lesson does, it gives the person the experience of monitoring sows as they farrow. It goes through several sows and they make decisions along the way. There's real GoPro videos of sows that really are farrowing up there, and the learner gets feedback along the way. How does this establish relevance? What's the environment look like? It matches what they see. How does this also establish relevance in a way that respects the feelings of the people doing this? The big X doesn't come up. Oh, Dr. Sarah's so nice. She's so nice. We really work hard to be warm and engaging. We smile a lot, and we try to be very happy about the information we're presenting. It's a conscious effort to develop a character, and we chose her because she's fairly cheap. But e-learning is only as good as what happens after e-learning, right? So what we try to promote and drive is that this can create a relevant experience that puts your learners at the same experience level. Then you can take that to the farm and build on it because you have knowledge of what they've experienced, because this is tracking every move you make as you move through it in a positive way. But if I'm the admin of someone taking this lessons, I know every choice that you've made, and it's going to send me a report. so that I know maybe what I need to reinforce when I'm with you on farm. I'm going to show another thing that we've produced that I think is a good example of establishing relevance in a way that allows the person to view the world from a different perspective. Some of you may not like this video. Some of you might call it anthropomorphism. But for me as a teacher, I catch people's attention with this. What's the shock value of catching someone's attention? Anyone know physiologically what happens when you see something new? You stare at it. Why? Your brain actually releases chemicals called endorphins that make you more awake because you're seeing something new and unexpected. So that's something we try to throw into every training is, first and foremost, let's wake you up. Let's show you something new and unexpected so that your brain is prepped for learning. Sometimes it might be silly, but it's almost always effective.
Hey you, yes you. I see you come into this barn every day and feed us. Don't get me wrong, that's great, but we need more than that. Let me give you some tips. We need you to look at every pen, every pig, every day. That's the only way you are going to find the sick pigs. Let me tell you why. You are scary to us. Your eyes, they're all in the front of your face. And we all know what predators do, don't we? They target the weak, the sick. Because the sick are easier to catch. So if you get in the pen, I'm going to do my best to hide my weakness. My eyes are on the side of my face. I'm a prey species. Yep, I can see in front of me and behind me. The better to see you and run away from you. Click on these video diary entries from a member of my herd. It's not exactly a happy ending, but it could have been if someone like you had found him earlier.
How does that establish relevance? Did you stay awake? Yeah, you did. But how does that establish a type of relevance that's not natural to a lot of folks? Connecting. Mm-hmm. I was sitting in a room of veterinarians in the executive veterinary program, and we do something called Strength Finder, which picks out your top 5 strengths, and you're supposed to work on your strengths, and you feel great about yourself. It's awesome. One of the strengths that they've identified is empathy. Guess how many veterinarians in the room had empathy in their top 10? There were 3 of us. I was one. But empathy is something that isn't always natural. And sometimes empathy, to be a really good caregiver, you need to develop that skill. And you need to be able to see things from the pig's perspective, which is why we chose in this instance the video diary consultation approach. Let's get engagement in that toolbox. So what is engagement during learning? Being present in the moment is one of my most simple definitions. Attention with the intent of application, right? It's one thing to sit here today. It's another thing to do it. It's another thing to take these tools that everyone's produced and use them on farm. Engagement is a willingness to feel positively and passionately about obtaining and applying information. As adult learners, do you think we need engagement? Absolutely. It's an essential tool in your toolbox. So as teachers, how do we get learners to feel this way? Let's talk about that quickly. How we choose to teach matters. And empowering the adult learner with decisions and choices matters as well. So giving the adult learner the opportunity to choose, to make decisions, to maneuver in the learning in the way that is best for them is important to the adult learner. 5 more minutes, okay. So, as a herd veterinarian, I made the mistake of writing herd visit reports. I would write these long reports, hand them to my farmers and say, look at this, it's amazing, read it. When we read something, how much of it do we retain? What does science say? What do you think? You guys are optimists. I love it. 10%. The science says when you read something, you retain about 10%. Nice. That was a lot of time. I would go on farm and I would talk. I would talk to people and explain things. I would call them on the phone as I was driving and say, oh yeah, so those pigs, you need to give this much medicine and put 1 bag per 5 gallons of stock solution and administer it for 5 days. Thanks very much. How much do you think they retain when I communicate that way to my clients? Any ideas? Survey says 20% of what you say over the phone is going to get done. Nice. Gosh, I've been telling my employees to do it. Why aren't they getting it done like I asked? Okay, so you see something. You're on the farm and you're watching another employee do something a certain way. And you're like, I'm new, so I want to know what you're doing so that I do it right. If I'm on farm watching that employee do something, how much of that am I going to retain? You think it's more than my phone call? It is. That's going to override anything you tell a person on the phone. If they see someone on the farm doing it a certain way, that's what they're going to remember more than your phone call saying, don't do it that way. We retain 30% of that information. What if we see it and hear it? Sit down on television and watch a video. How much? What does science say we'll retain of that? It's actually more. It's 50%. We actually retain more from watching a video than sometimes watching someone do it on farm. That's what the survey says. What if we talk to another person about what we're doing and we share a discussion about it? We share an experience with that person. How much do we retain when we have that sort of experience? 80? We're getting more optimists. We're close. The close survey says 70%. I'm feeling better about that, though, as a teacher, though. You know, we're starting to get people passing the test. What if you go out and do it? How much when you do it? Maybe you're even reading the instructions and then doing it. She's alone. How much is she going to retain of what she's doing? It may not be right, but how much is she going to retain by physically putting it into action? Yeah, 80%. But how do we get that even higher? How do we get it up to 95%, you think? What do you think that person has to do? Show somebody, teach somebody. When you've learned it and you get to the point where you become a teacher and you teach someone else, you retain 95% of it. Because what do? You study up the night before. You're like, oh no, I'm going to have to show them how to do it. I better know what else to say. I better know what to do. There's adrenaline. There's endorphins. And then they have to perform and show that person. And then if the system is developed smartly, who becomes the next teacher? William Glasser did this research and said that if we're truly going to reach people, we need to make them teachers of the subject. That's how we get to an A level of learning. So let me talk about a way that we've established engagement on farms. There's a course that our company wrote, actually for Zoetis, in which we were hired to teach people individual pig care. And we wrote a course where we did some classroom time. And then we talked about what we need to do to be good teachers. We taught people how to reach people as individuals, how to read behavioral styles, and teach in a way that reaches an individual. And then we took them out to the farm, and they had to teach not one person how to do what they just learned, but all four different behavioral styles that we taught. Because it doesn't, if you're really going to reach the learner, then you have to teach people how to read what that other person wants. Because what I want as a human being is not the same as what you want. You know? Some people want the case built from the ground up, all the way to the top. Some people just want to know what's in it for me and what are the results. And you need to be able to read your learners so that you present the information in a way that matters and in a way that resonates. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to present. Those are two of the most important tools that you need to put in your adult learning toolbox. And I want to challenge you to apply it on farm so that we can have folks doing better work, better service to the animals on our farms. Thank you very much.